So here we are after 5 months or more of dealing with the China virus and COVID-19. Let's take a look back, see where we are now and how we need to go forward and what our posture should be given what we know now that we did not know then. First of all, we did not know what we were dealing with. So when an emergency declaration was made by the president and then by most governors, most people were certainly open to the possibilities of the dangers that we might be facing. I mean, after all, there was a potential 3.4 or more percent death rate, and that was a very daunting thought and very concerning. But we saw then, as the months went by, that the death rate was very limited in terms of demographics. Obviously, there are exceptions, but I am right now talking about, statistically speaking, it is very limited to a particular demographic. Older people with pre-existing conditions are the ones that have suffered the most deaths. In Colorado, where we have experienced now a renewed emergency declaration for 5 times by Governor Jared Polis, we have only a 0.03% death rate, specifically and mostly limited to the demographic I just mentioned. We have a huge question in front of us that many of us have been asking, and that is, where is the emergency? Every life is treasured and valued and matters, but when you have onerous rules on individuals and businesses and there is no emergency in sight, that dictatorial authority and exercise of power is extremely difficult to justify. I would say it is unjustified. So why can't we stop that? What can citizens do? First, we have to understand how it works. The Public Health Service Act, if we back up and go to the federal level, was put into place in 1944. Sometime, of course, after the flu and the pandemic of 1918 that many of us have referred to. And what we see with that is an incredible, expansive amount of power being given to the medical arm of the administrative branch under the Department of Human Services, the Center for Disease Control, the National Institutes of Health. So just to rephrase that, in an instance like we have when you can declare a pandemic, and I might say as a side note, there's very little definition of a pandemic other than to say it's a worldwide outbreak. So this is what basically ignites their power, is when a pandemic is declared. There does not appear to be any connection to the lethality of that pandemic in terms of putting a check upon these then public health officials, these bureaucrats, these medical bureaucrats in our country that are frankly now calling all the shots. And then that translates to states that have then maintained their emergency powers through their governors, a public health institution of these incredible onerous rules and regulations that then dictate to every citizen within each of those states, like here in Colorado, just based on their policies. And all of that is propped up by the ability to declare an emergency. Now, when you look back at how that power has been used in the past, it is for natural disasters. For example, in Colorado, we've had some wicked fires through the decades. We've lived through 2 of them in the 25 years we've been in the state. That makes sense. And when that dies down and the fires are under control, that emergency declaration is lifted. So why, with the so-called health crisis, which I can't see anywhere, are we continuing to have emergency powers in place? Let's just talk about Colorado, when there is no apparent health emergency. I am happy to be challenged and for someone to prove to me that we have a health emergency. But every time, again, here in Colorado, and other states really as well, they continue to redeclare this emergency and perpetrate it, keep it going, more money is sent from the federal government to, one place it's sent is to the state's public health department. What are they doing with that money? We know they're hiring contact tracers. Why are we contact tracing when the rate of recovery is 99.8%, 99.9%, really? It makes no sense that we would be contact tracing. Yes, more people are testing positive, and guess what else? They are not manifesting COVID, or they have recovered and had a mild case. So this is very concerning. We must cling to liberty. We must cling to our freedoms, not as crazy people, not as angry people, as rational, caring, kind, and polite people when we're out and about shopping or whatever we're doing, and walk though in this confidence that there is a huge question mark on how things are being done and what we need to do to change it next time with the Public Health Service Act and cutting back some of the power, which now I see as an abuse of that law, that federal law, and what now I see as an abuse of the use of emergency powers and authority in our state and many other states. And these things need to be addressed going forward. And we can do that as joyful warriors and continue to put that pressure so that this is changed, because it's not right, it's not just, and it's not justified. So join me in that posture.